It's March 23rd, 2016.
This is Idle Thumbs 255, and I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
And I'm James Spafford.
And Jake is sick.
Oh, yeah. He's sick. His
sick.
Christmas tree is sick.
What?
He was like trying to cut down a Christmas tree and he cut his arm or something. Didn't that happen?
Yes.
Yeah. In January. Jake is actually also going to be out next week because he's going to be in Hawaii.
Yeah,
man.
Two Jakeless episodes.
I know, back-to-back
in a row.
Jakeless.
Really strange.
The whole new podcast.
Who knew that Jake held the podcast
back.
together? The glue, the fabric.
I think everyone knew that.
Yeah, I think everyone did, actually. It's true. Anyway, have you guys played video games?
I heard your life was ruined by a mouse.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's also true. Not of the computer variety. Actually, it was ruined by Factorio, which I played with a mouse, and then also...
You broke your mouse, but then you failed to destroy a mouse.
Right. Yeah, it was just a classic, like, 1950s stupid cartoon happening in my apartment for, like, a week.
Wait, did you solve it?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, man, so what happened? Wait,
How
so
did you
explain
solve
what
it?
was going on with
Well,
this
I
mouse.
called the Orkin Man, of course.
Okay. Well, you spent like a week trying to like haplessly trap this
Oh, yeah.
thing. Or,
No, I was just
like,
Nathan
shoo it
Lane.
out the door.
Just like, I don't know what to do. And just running around my apartment trying to
Standing
chase
on
a
chairs
thing.
going, oh!
Like, if robots were as fast as mice... we would be when they inevitably become if they were now,
when the big mouse
but when
is
they will
created.
be that fast, that's when we will all be destroyed, because there's literally no way to catch something that is as fast as a mouse. You can't do it. The first time I saw him, it was just a blur in the corner of my eye, which is the same blur that will be the robot, coming to
except it'll just
smash in
be,
your
it'll just
face.
be an autonomous knife.
Exactly, yeah. Right, and that'll be the blur that you see. In my case, it was, I think I just saw something, and then feeling insane for a straight 24 hours, as my girlfriend told me, like, no, you didn't, you idiot. If there was a mouse in here, we'd see it. She's just, like, hitting walls and just like,
Come on
out,
that
mouse.
is a screenplay line right there.
Yeah.
If there were a mouse in here, we could easily see
and
it
then the
with
camera
our eyes.
the camera just slowly goes down to her feet level, and just slowly pans down.
Yeah, no, it just
and
pans
it's
up.
Right, it's just like crawling along the floor. Yeah.
But then
in her hair,
But then it
just
runs
on her
away
head.
so fast that you can't see it.
Oh, God. How many mice did you have in your house?
Well, we
Mouse.
had one. So I trapped one in the closet, which became its own sort of like nuclear situation. Like basically, you think like, oh, I can just contain this situation. I'll lock him in the closet, right?
And
Did
then
you
what?
stuff
But
things
then
under
what?
the-
To what
Because
end?
he's so fast. If you open the door, then you
Right.
don't know where he is. Then he's just like,
Right.
Then he's just gone.
You should have like piped poisonous
Yes.
gas into your closet,
Well-
and then burned all your clothes
I mean, we tried various
in a mouse hole.
Yeah, there were a lot of boneheaded ideas that came to like halfway being tried out, and then it's like the thing where you open the door and then you're like, wait, I don't know what I'm doing, and then you close
like,
the door.
what if we hold a
But then
big
the mouse
bag
is
over the
already
door?
Yeah.
Like,
We tried to basically build like a little level for the mouse to run through.
Oh my God.
Like we were like, oh, we've got this plywood and this cardboard box. What if we just try to make this like cool
you
this
tried to
cool like
level
first person
design
shooter
away your mouse
like
problem.
corridor for this thing to just like go out the front door.
You tried
and
to
then
do an experiment. You
Yeah.
tried to actually
Right.
turn this mouse into a lab mouse.
Yeah, it's true, and then it beat us. It just was smarter than the experimentors. Like we just were completely owned, totally pwned by this stupid mouse. It wouldn't leave. It knew what we were doing clearly. We built the level, and then we opened the front door, and then like we got like a ski pole. And we
Yeah.
were trying to like shoo it out, and it was like, I'm not going
ski
anywhere. This is
pole.
like a comfy nest. I've built a nest out of all your stupid old clothes that you don't use, and now I like it here. And so then we were trying to like bang on the back of the like closet, hoping it would
But
just
your
go
neighbors
out.
loved you.
Oh yeah, no, it was a great.
well, they
week for
probably
that.
introduced the mouse to begin with.
That's true. I don't really like.
There's
any
a
of the
really
flavors,
like
but-
weird guy next door who freaks out about things. Great idea. Guess what? Guess what we're doing?
I've got this really cool mouse hole shaped drill bit. I'm gonna drill a little mouse
Right.
hole.
They bugged my apartment, and they're just laughing in the other room, just like.
That's going to be a segment on the podcast next week. By the
Right.
way, it was me.
Yeah, good.
Well, What if I pulled another?
What if that bear had a microphone in it?
Yeah, what if that bear had a mouse in it?
Yeah, right.
That as soon as you opened the box, that mouse was deposited into your home.
Yeah,
and that was the real. You thought you were outsmarting me by not pulling the pull tab.
Right.
Nope.
That's
the mouse. So what did the Orkin man do? He just killed the mouse?
Yeah, he just walked in and, well, I mean, like, he was very impressed that I had caught it in a closet, but then also kind of disturbed by what was happening, because we opened the door and it's just that mouse had just had a party in there for like 5 days, and there was just, they poop like once every 5 minutes. So I mean, it was just like awful, just terrible. And then the guy's like, "How did you even catch this thing? Like, they're lightning fast. This thing's really fast." And I was like, I don't know.
Video game skills.
Yeah. Like,
I'm Nick Brecken.
Yeah.
That's
I've been playing Devil Daggers for 5
Nick
weeks.
Brecken.
Yeah.
and then he instantly understood.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, you get these sticky glue things, which everybody told me to buy in the first place, but they some people said don't buy them because it tortures the mouse, and this guy was like, "No, that's the only thing that works. You gotta do it. You gotta do it." So
classic.
You throw these
like Guantanamo
boards
Bay
with glue on it, and so he was sort of constructing his own kind of like trap for this thing, and then eventually the mouse just kind of was forced to run out, got stuck to this thing, and then it was just like eep eep eep, and then I just kind of looked away, and then there was no more eeping, and then he came out with like a mouse sandwiched between two things.
Did you hear like the kind of a shing of like someone like drawing a sword out of a belt, or like club?
No. I honestly didn't know what to expect of it. He was just like very like he had seen things so much worse,
right?
Than I mean, you can't really impress an exterminator.
Yeah, this
in a
has
major
been
city.
your nightmare for a week.
This has been my nightmare for him. It's
literally
like an easy call.
You're a baby. This is a baby situation.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. You're a baby who's managed to trap a mouse in a closet.
Yeah, kind of.
So, did you have no access to your clothes in this entire time?
No, we had we have a dresser that's separate from the closet. Okay. Which is probably why this was allowed to continue. Right? Like if we'd been forced to go in there for clothes, it would have just run out eventually, and then everything would have been fine. But because we allowed ourselves to just live with the problem, it was a problem for everybody. That mouse died because of me, basically. And
as with most Nick Brecken stories, there's a life lesson here that are applicable to everyone.
Just let it go. Just let it go out the front door. Our building has problems in general. He took me down to like the dark level, like the Diablo dungeon.
Whoa.
of
the deep web.
Yeah, like he was. Oh man, he uncovered some stuff that made me terrified.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was not.
Was he hired by you or by your building?
By me. Basically for the building. And the building doesn't know.
Oh, crazy!
I'm just charging them. But this city has a big rat problem, so it's not pleasant.
Man, speaking of Diablo, did you see that?
I saw you went to it. I didn't. Diablo talk.
There was a Diablo postmortem at Game Developers Conference by David Brevik, which happened after last week's podcast, so I didn't talk about it on the podcast, but it was really interesting, and he actually released... David Brevik was one of the original co-founders of Condor. Most people don't remember that, but there was a studio called Condor that was acquired by Blizzard, and that became Blizzard North, which is the studio that made Diablo and Diablo 2.
Yeah, they made like a fighting game before.
Yeah, they made a Justice League fighting game and a bunch of sports games that apparently were actually quite successful.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that... like Matt, he'd actually, during the postmortem, he didn't talk about the music at all, which was a bummer to me because, I think the music is something that people really remember from the original Diablo, and it was like super foundational to that game's success and to people's memories of it. And when he actually loaded up the Diablo demo that shipped on the PC Gamer demo disc, which still ran, he was like shocked that it still ran. And it had that music in it, and it was instantly just like, oh my god. But the funny thing is, and again, he didn't mention this in the talk, but just separately, Matt Ullman also just did music for like the Justice League fighting game and stuff, which is really funny.
I interviewed him a couple years back.
Oh yeah, me too.
He talked all about that in this crazy long interview. Yeah. It was a really strange thing that he was just talking about like how... he was just making like weird, like fighting game, like wacky music, and then you know what I mean. And then he finally actually got to do something with his guitar, and then it became this crazy, interesting piece. But anyway,
in addition to giving this talk where he went into amazingly granular detail about the circumstances leading to the development of the original Diablo. It was really impressive how detailed it was. In addition to that, he also released publicly, just on the internet, the original design document for Diablo by, at the time, Condor, which is what he presented to Blizzard, which at the time was called Silicon and Synapse. Another thing...
I'm not sure which name I prefer. To be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
It had an amazing logo, too, of like a sassy mascot.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good.
And so this was the document that he gave the Blizzard guys when he went, like, and you can read it online, and it's really interesting. Like, Diablo was originally conceived as a roguelike, like a true roguelike, a turn-based game in the style of, that actual genre, and rogue, etc. And at one point, this actually really reminded me of the stories of Miyamoto coming into retro studios and being like,
yeah.
this needs to be first person. And they're like, what are you talking about? And then he's like, no, it just needs to be. And then they did it. And they're like, oh, wow, this is good. At least that's the way that the stories, they always tell the story. Who knows? The Diablo one, this seems pretty verifiable because the actual came straight from the mouth of the guy who was responsible for literally doing it. They were developing Diablo already, or not already. This was after they had successfully pitched it to Blizzard, Silicon and Synapse / Blizzard, and Blizzard, which was effectively the publisher of the game, said, "Okay, great, but you know what? This really needs to be real time." And Breivik was like completely flabbergasted by this and totally adamant that it not be, because it was his entire conception of this was like, oh no, we're taking this like classic roguelike thing and we're making it modern and making it look really beautiful, and like that's the whole point. Like the whole point is that. And he said they took a vote in the office, and it was in Condor / Blizzard North, and every single person in the office except for him voted to make it real time.
Whoa.
So he was like, well, I guess we're doing that. So he described just like being at the office late one night at 10 or 11 p.m. and he just turned up the time scale of the turn. He said it was like an incredibly easy change to go from turn-based to real-time, and I imagine that's just because the game was probably relatively well-written and therefore like behaved well when you just changed a major rule of it. And I'm sure he had to tweak a bunch of shit, but like he said it was essentially a one-night change just to get it provable, proof of concept. And he described the feeling, and he had a gif of this, of like clicking on a skeleton and having the player character just of their own volition, like walk from the point where they were over to the skeleton and then hit the skeleton, and then the skeleton falls over. And he was like, the feeling of doing that, watching that happen in real time, like that one click, and then watching this whole physical thing come out from it was incredible. And he was like, that was the birth of the action RPG, like that moment in the office. Yeah, it was really, it was like chills to watch that guy stand up there and describe this, and you could just tell how totally awe-stricken he still is about like
How he
that
accidentally
moment.
birthed
And
the genre.
yeah, I mean, sort of accidentally, but sort of not. It's one of those things where someone's just like, you know what, you've got a really great thing here, and like everything about it is really great, but change this one super fundamental thing. And he's like, I don't know about that. And then it turns out like, oh my God, that is the thing that like makes this transcendent, and not just like really cool, but like actually amazing, and creates an entire genre essentially. So it was really great. I hope that talk is put online for free at some point. The GDC often puts its most popular talks up for free after they've been kind of edited and put on video and everything. So hopefully they do that. But you can download the PDF of the pitch document for free. I'm sure if you search for Diablo pitch document, you'll just find all the news stories about it.
Is a pitch document not a full like a design document? It's the pitch document.
I mean,
right?
it's
fairly early
It's an
on.
8-page.
It's pretty
two.
detailed.
It,
But yeah,
it really summarizes the whole thing. It was like the map of all the dungeons underneath the one bit of the
Shows a little
church and
isometric kind of thing.
Yeah, and a lot of it
mood
was
of it. It's
a lot of
amazing.
it was like really already set, like the whole procedural generated dungeon thing that was there.
It says it right here. The heart of Diablo is a randomly created dungeon. I mean, it's like, it's crazy how much is,
and the scale of the world, like the isometric angle and the exact size of the tile. And you know where that comes from? He literally took a screenshot of XCOM, the original XCOM, because he was obsessed with it. And he was like, by the way, taking a screenshot in those days was hard, which wouldn't have occurred to me.
Right.
Like now it's so easy to do that. But he's like, we took a screenshot and we literally traced the little diamond that creates the isometric square of the grid, and we put that exact shape into our game, the exact pixel dimensions, so that the floor grid of Diablo 1 is 100% pixel identical to the floor grid scale of the original XCOM.
God, and I wonder what stuff is then based on Diablo's.
It's probably
I love it when things like that happen.
That's a good point. I didn't think about it from that.
How that's blossomed out probably into every isometric game ever.
Yeah.
Amazing. Stuff like that happens in real life, like the size of railway tracks is connected to the size of horses' asses because wagons were a certain size to accommodate things, and then they built the tracks, and now trains use it.
Stuff like that. Just totally, it's weird. Yeah, everything's connected.
I love the stuff in here that did sort of get like carved away though, like
the
player's
collectible
character
discs.
has just had his life thrown upside down when sinister raiders kill his family and destroy his home. I guess that's just the secret lore backstory for your Diablo 1
you know what's
guy.
funny about that is that just sounds like a non-Blizzard North Blizzard game.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
Blizzard games are full of that kind of shit, and like Diablo is just not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so much more stripped down and bare.
Absolutely no backstory at all for your character.
No,
Diablo, right? You just
you just show up in town.
This thing, and they're like, "Oh God, my kid's been kidnapped or whatever." Is that what's happened? I can't remember.
Well, there's just like
there's
terrible
like a
shit
weird
going down underground.
We plan to offer
butcher.
5 or 6 human races, hill people, forest people, etc.
This is like it's like Doom. You know how the original?
Yeah, God.
Have you ever read the
my
original Tom Hall's original story document for Doom?
That thing is
actually.
incredible.
It
I
is
don't think so.
bonkers.
That
That
thing
game
is
was like
incredible.
System Shock when it was. I mean, that game was like a crazily complex, detailed game with super like deep fiction and crazy systems.
I mean, there were cutscenes that he had scripted.
Yeah.
You can read just like whole like cutscene scripts for this thing where it's like this, the 4 Marines walk into the room and then they do this stuff and then now you shoot some guys and then the 4 Marines have a conversation about like their wounded fallen buddy Marine, and it's just like hilarious.
And then John Romero's like, you know what we should do? Replace all of that with just a series of colored key cards.
Great. One for each cutscene.
It'll be fine.
You walk up to a door, the door opens.
Or it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because it's the wrong color. Dramatic
Oh, God.
tension. Yeah. But like that was also the right choice, right? I mean, like, obviously,
yeah.
Because System Shock just still exists. Also, have you guys seen the System Shock remake?
I know that it exists. I haven't seen any.
It's crazy.
anything,
I mean, it's I don't know. I kind of wish that it looked a little bit less advanced. You know what I mean? I don't know, because the trailer tries to get a lot of mileage out of like, and there's a zombie and you swing a thing at him, but it does that like 4 times because like, that's not really what that game is entirely about, and it's sort of hard to communicate in a trailer. And I kind of wish that the style was just a little bit more abstracted to sort of remind the player, like, this isn't supposed to look and feel and play like a modern, super polished shooter, because it just isn't. Like, it's never going to be that, because it's not what the kind of game is. And I kind of wish it was a little more like self-conscious about that, but that's a hard note to give.
I
and
wish
like,
there was more system and less shock involved
Well,
in the
I assume
marketing
that-
of this.
that's your
in the
one
marketing
note
of this shock game.
well, not just the marketing. I just totally love the like throwback kind of okay, so here's an example, like Devil Daggers, which Spaff, I know you played more of this week, right? Like, that's a game that feels kind of archaic in how it looks, but not like bad, or it's not bad or dated. Like, it's I mean, it's clearly self-conscious in the way that it looks. It's not because they like, were just like don't know how to make fancy graphics. Like, it's just, it's so obviously an intentional choice, and I think it would be amazing if the new System Shock had that kind of approach to it, but still had all the things that modern games can do, like much better, cleaner UI, which the original System, that's like one of the biggest obstacles to playing the original System Shock, and like just, clean design in all of the under the hood ways and in the player feel and stuff. But it would be cool if there was some kind of like hybrid modern retro graphical style
like
that.
Double Daggers, and feels like, and it looks like my memory of playing Quake and what that felt like to play. But if you actually went and played it, you'd be like, oh god, this is nothing like I remember it, because it's clunky.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if it could capture that modern design aesthetic where you can just go, oh, this is cool, it feels exactly like System Shock, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Sequel has improved a bunch of stuff.
And it's like a condensation of like you want to like if I was going to sit down and like play Quake, I would get, partway through a level and go like, all right, is there just going to be more of this stuff? You know what I mean? It's just not a focus. It's not focused in the way that Devil Daggers is, right? Because it's this sprawling kind of like video game package. And when I I find myself, I don't know if you guys do this, but like I'll download like an old game like TIE Fighter or something, and I play like 2 levels, and I'm like, okay, I remember what this is. But if somebody made a game that looked like TIE Fighter that was actually packaged to kind of give you like a bite-sized version of that, and then the whole game was built around that, I would probably play that more than I would go back and play TIE Fighter now. I don't know.
So that's why I like. So you're not necessarily interested in System Shock, you mean? The new one, I mean, or like the remake of the old one.
I am, but specifically because I didn't play a lot of System Shock.
So that's what I'm getting at. Is it because of your actual specific familiarity with those games, or is the reaction you're describing because of your intuition and your sort of like aggregate gamer literacy?
Yeah, probably the latter.
Yeah. Okay, so that means System Shock's going to be a harder sell for you.
Probably
after the first like hour.
Probably.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I guess it's probably not targeted at us as much as it is like theoretical new gamers who are just interested in playing a crazy thing.
Yeah,
which is probably correct.
Yeah.
Well, you played Factorio.
I did play Factorio.
I know you've been obsessed.
I didn't know
with
this game existed until...
Well, describe what it is, because I didn't know it existed.
Yeah, so Factorio is a 2D top-down builder game, I guess you could say. It's basically a sandbox. There is a campaign, but I kind of didn't. I haven't explored what that actually is. I assume it's just a kind of hand-holdy thing that teaches you the mechanics. But it is at its core just a sandbox game that is based around building a crazy factory. And I know there are a lot of other games like this, so I'm going to kind of struggle to understand where this game pushes on the genre. But I have never really gotten into like Infinifactory or anything like that. This game feels more, though, like because of the specific perspective. It's like a Diablo kind of perspective. It's
really?
very
it's like an isometric.
I mean, you're controlling one guy
from Diablo.
Yeah, right.
From XCOM.
You're controlling one dude, and you control him with WASD, and you start out in the middle of this like 2D forest that kind of has that grainy Diablo feeling. You chop down some trees and gain a bunch of wood, and then you can use the wood to build, there are like 4 or 5 major resources that are just sort of the elemental resources, like copper, iron, wood, and stone, I think. And basically, it just of course like spirals into this insane like Anno level thing where you sort of build the foundational plants of like, okay, I've got my iron being mined here. Now I've got a furnace that's turning the iron into iron or steel plates. Now I can use those steel plates to build the next thing that will then turn this thing into this thing. And then you get all the way down this tech tree that's just like incredibly large, and end up with like, plastics and oil and, like these huge like factory mechanisms. But a lot of the game is built around conveyor belts, so you can actually just lay conveyor belts like you would in like a SimCity game, just one tile at a time, and they can go in any direction. And so you just basically, because the map is so large, you end up with these insane. I mean, it really does feel in some ways to me like a transport game, because a lot of the game is just built around transporting your resources from one area to the next and building this sort of like increasingly large, complex factory. Where it's the kind of, for instance, it's the kind of game where you'll kind of get one supply chain going, and then realize like, oh god, there's like a much more efficient way that I could have done this. I guess I'm just gonna blow it all up and just rebuild it and like do it the right way. And then you do that, and then like an hour later, you're like, oh god, nope, I found the better way, blowing it all up again. But
are you
actually,
learning as you do that? Are you learning principles that help you in the field? Okay.
So I mean, there are a lot of layers to this game. Yes.
Yes.
There are a lot of layers to this game. For one, the conveyor belts are sort of a large component. You have these things called inserters that are just little mechanical arms. There are a lot of like really nice little touches that make this game really satisfying to play. Like, for instance, if you build a steam engine, you pump water out of a lake. The water goes through pipes that you lay. You can see the water sort of flowing through the pipes. Then the pipes go to boilers. The boilers have to be fed with coal that these little mechanical arms just kind of grab off a conveyor belt. So you have all these little like fast mechanical arms that are just grabbing coal off of a conveyor belt, just doing this thing, throwing it into the boilers. The boilers are burning, and then they go into a steam engine that's this sort of like huge engine with all these moving parts, and then just like these billowing like clouds of steam are kind of shooting out of the engines, and then the electricity is leaving the steam engine and going like powering all your electrical contraptions. It's just like it's all very just like really satisfying to behold. But then, there's the sort of layer of like basically building this thing to be efficient, which is really hard because you just realize really quickly that like once the supply chain becomes complex enough, just space becomes an issue. Like actually getting one good from this side of the map to this side of the map.
Yeah.
I mean, you can build underground conveyor belts. You can build all of these things. There's a whole robot thing that I haven't even touched, which is like you can have robots that are sort of programmed. I mean, there's a level of like logical programming that you can build into certain things. Like there's a circuit system where you can actually wire up certain plants using the circuit system to only turn on when a particular good, for instance, like it can count, the goods coming down the conveyor belt and say, okay, for every 2 coal, I'm only turning on this inserter when there's when there are 2 coal, or when there's 2 times more coal than there are steel plates. Like the thing that I haven't encountered in other games like this is that this game is a lot like much more particular in terms of fine tuning than say like an Anno game. Where an Anno game, if you've got more bread than you need at a given time, it's not like
fine.
It's kind of fine. With this game, if you have more, in Factorio, if you have more steel plates than you need, they're just jamming up your conveyor belt, and then suddenly like your whole system just like grinds to a halt.
That is like an Infinifactory or like a Space Chem or something like that, where the system is it's a very closed system, and problems are big, like things.
Problems spiral out of control.
Everything is like interconnected. So in Anno, it's about sort of trade routes. Like it's not about machinery, So things don't really gum up the works; they just are wasted.
Right. They can do though. They can. Your ships could get too full of junk and not be able to carry.
That's true. There is some automation.
That's true.
There's a level of automation.
There is some of that. You're right, but it's like these connecting elements. But it's not going to like. It's not going to overheat your city, or like it's not like your warehouses will just stop filling up. They won't explode or like back up and cause another type of producing unit to fail or something like that.
The other thing this game has that I haven't seen personally in another game like this is that it actually has like a threat, like a violent threat. So there are these.
Oh, that doesn't sound appealing to me.
You wouldn't think so, but I actually really like it because it kind of acts as a background sort of motivating factor at kind of creating this efficient sort of protected thing. It's not about going out and so there are these sort of like cockroach style monsters that just kind of spawn.
Spaff's eyes just got huge. Called the Orkin Man.
Cockroach style.
Yeah, they're called
monsters?
Biters and like what I don't know, whatever. So they spawn in these. Actually, so the way the system works is your factory creates pollution, and the more pollution that you cause in the world, the faster these things like start to populate.
Disgusting.
So it actually scales with you. It scales with your factory. So basically, what it's doing is giving you kind of a pressure that's being applied at a constant rate as your factory becomes crazier. You've got to worry about this sort of outside presence. It's not my favorite aspect of this game, but I was surprised that it works as well as it does, because
That's cool.
I mean, it's not about like going out and actually being like a cool guy that kills things.
Right.
It's not really a Diablo game, but what will happen is just
Doesn't sound like it is at all.
No.
So
Well,
I didn't really need that disclaimer.
But
Yeah.
there is a procedural dungeon crawling aspect.
I mean, the map is procedural, and whatever. It looks like
yeah.
Diablo.
Yeah.
Your character is
shoot
a
some guys
waster
in
whose
real
family
time.
has been killed. And
right. But no,
And
it
there's a
actually
demon called Diablo in it.
it has the exact pixel
Oh
grade
man,
from XCOM.
sorry, I have to take a quick detour.
Yeah, go for it.
This was like 2 minutes at the most. So
I'll be timing you.
you feel free. So David Brevik, who gave this Diablo talk, he grew up actually in the East Bay, like near here in the Bay Area, which is why Blizzard North was in the Bay Area, despite Blizzard Entertainment being down in L.A. or Irvine or whatever. And he didn't grow up here, but he went to high school for a few years here. I think he now lives in San Francisco again. And he in high school his school was like in the shadow of this mountain here called Mount Diablo, which if you're from the Bay Area is just like a thing that's here. And when he moved here, he didn't know anything about Spanish or what that word was. So he looked up what Diablo meant, and he's like, "Oh wow, that's totally sick." I just thought it was like so cool, like Mount Diablo, and he's like, "I gotta use that name for something someday." Like Diablo,
Awesome.
that is cool. That's literally why Diablo is called Diablo, is because when he was a teenager, it sounds like he actually came up with most of the ideas for the original Diablo when he was a teenager in high school.
It feels
I know,
like a
it
game
totally
that-
tracks. I know, it totally tracks. But it's like, but the thing that's interesting about that is not that a teenager came up with that stuff, which is sort of unremarkable. The more remarkable thing is that it actually got made, became something amazing, like really great.
Yeah.
And
Things would have been really different if he had lived like by Mount Sutra,
Mount Shasta,
Tamalpais.
yeah, not Tamil.
in the Castro or something.
Yeah.
Right? Castro.
So anyway, that's my entire digression. So,
Yeah, that's cool.
I have a question for you about Factorio and other games like it. Just knowing, because like I say this because I can sort of relate to some of your neuroticisms and like sort of just like overthinking and so on. Why do you think this kind of game is appealing to you? Isn't it like really stressful? And
I know you find these games stressful sometimes.
I do, but I also like them. Like I love the Anno games.
Yeah.
But I definitely, there are times where I'll get into an Anno game and I'll just get into sort of like a zone. And it's one of the reasons I like that series is because it's not super punishing. Like you can kind of let stuff pile up and it's not the end of the world and you can sort of fix it at your own pace.
Yeah.
And it's not just like constantly like fires to put out everywhere. Like I've played a bunch of these games, Space Chem, Infinifactory, like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I like them a lot, but usually with the ones that are so clockwork precise that any wrinkles like back up on you. I can play those for several hours, but then past a point, like once you get to the really hard levels, I'm like, oh man, I can't. Like I could probably do this,
Yeah.
but like I don't know if I can take it psychologically.
Right.
So I'm curious what how you feel about that.
I find this game less stressful than Anno.
Okay.
And because the background enemy thing is actually, again, like it's tweaked to the point, it's balanced to the point where it's actually typically not that big of a deal. I mean, it seems like it when you start out playing, but then once you realize, like, I can put a laser cannon here and it just kind of handles all of this for me, it's not a big issue. And then, of course, it auto-saves every 2 minutes, so again, it's really not a problem if anything actually catastrophic happens. But then in terms of the supply chain, if something goes wrong, you usually have so many resources still just... Like, one of the mechanics is that you can just have a chest, and it just has a billion slots, and then you can just have a robot arm that's just collecting resources and just throwing it in chests.
I mean, that's kind of like
You
Anno,
can
because
pretty
you've got
much-
your main like dock sort
Right.
of depot, and then you've got trucks that just or whatever it is in the fiction
Yep.
that just automatically take stuff to it.
Yeah, in this case, it's a much more open system. It's a game that's clearly been developed over the course of many, many years.
Yeah, I was surprised. This game's been in development for 4 years.
And you can go back and look at YouTube videos. I was looking for just like hot tips, and it's just like the early version of this game doesn't look like this game. Like it looks like something completely different. It's
That's
very
crazy.
It's a really crazy effort. It seems like it's been really successful.
And are you building this factory? Like, what are you producing? What is the...
It really is. It has no real end.
Just creating itself.
Like the sort of
what's it supposed
to
be?
Then I think there is like a rocket that you're supposed to build. Like in Civ fashion,
sure.
like you just build the rocket and then escape this weird alien planet. But like
just like play our repetitive game system forever, and then suddenly a thing appears.
I mean, there's a huge.
I love Civ, by the way. I don't care if it's that. That's fine.
There's but really like on a moment to moment, there are 4 different sort of like colored. They almost look like Diablo potions. Okay, and they're the research like vials, and then those feed labs that you build, and then the labs fuel like the research for the tech tree. So really it's about creating all this resource chain is about like you build all the things you need to make like the green vial, but then like the blue one requires like oil and plastic and all this stuff that's like really hard to make, and then you sort of like build up your factory to where it can produce that in some amount of time.
So that's kind of a win state when you filled up all the
it seems like probably by the time I get to the point where I can create the last potion in a certain amount of volume without needing to like tweak my factory too much,
you'll build a rocket.
You build a rocket. Well, there's like powered
Diablo.
armor, and you're like, yeah, exactly, yeah, right. No, I think actually at that point, probably my factory will be large enough that there'll just be some weird, huge alien thing to kill on this map. But like, there's no real reason. It's just you play it because these games are fun. Like just making the one thing work because I've got other things is just a fun thing.
Maybe the reason that we like these games is because they allow us the illusion of control over a complex world.
For sure. That's absolutely the case. There's no question in my mind. But also this game, I just to kind of end talking about it, like I would say the thing that actually feels really
this game, Factorio. I'm trying to enforce
Factorio.
People always say that they forget what game we're talking about.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, Diablo.
Castro.
Yeah, Castro.
Man.
Apple pies.
Speaking of like small things in the past that influence future events, the small thing of Jake getting sick means that now the last 45 minutes has not been full of the phrase "It's a me, Factorio."
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I was just about to say it, so.
Anyway, I would say the conveyor belt sort of mechanic and the way that inserters work is just one of the more satisfying, like really crunchy mechanics I've encountered in a game like this, and it's just. I think clearly the game sort of spiraled out of that. That was kind of the core thing, and now there are just all these other things that you can do. Like he probably added enemies at some point, but really like the basic problem of I've got stuff on a conveyor belt, and like how do I make this thing efficient? Like you can split the conveyor belt so that they, like resources are perfectly divided between them. You can build these circuit networks. It's just really well thought out in the way that it works, and it's just very open and very sandboxy, which I like. It really does feel like. Kind of something like Anno, but taken to like the nth degree.
Right.
And I don't think I'll play it for like a million hours, but I certainly got hooked really fast. And
cool.
It's a good game. Yeah, I liked it.
Factorio. It's a hymn. Let's take a break.
Video games.
The act of playing games is one dotted with near endless failure. Yet we plough on. Jesper Juul's new book is exactly the sharp examination of failure I need to keep myself from stabbing my eyes out when I get frustrated.
That is a blurb from Jamin Warren, the founder of Killscreen. Read by Jamin Warren, the founder of Killscreen. Thanks, Jamin.
No problem.
That quote is actually about a book published by today's sponsor, MIT Press. It is called The Art of Failure, an essay on the pain of playing video games, and it is by Jesper Juul, or Jesper Juul, or Jesper Juul, as discussed in last week's ad. We don't know. That was the first book in a series published by MIT Press called Playful Thinking, which are small books about video games and gaming, about their sort of impact on players, their kind of emotional impact, the sort of like larger issues and trends that spiral out from games and their place in the world. And so if you are interested in those things, you should go to mitpress.com/idlethumbs. They have been adding to it over time. The newest one is by Catherine Isbister, who directs the Game Innovation Lab at NYU, and it's called Games Move Us. And that is about the way that games like provoke all kinds of different emotions, and sort of makes an argument that games are not creating a generation of sociopaths, essentially. So if you're looking for
a bit too late for that.
Go to mitpress.com/idlethumbs. Thanks, MIT Press. Inexplicably a sponsor of this podcast.
And thanks, Jesper Juhl.
Thanks, Jammin. Slammin' Jammin.
I'm sure Jammin is not how to pronounce his name, but yet a guy.
It's probably Yemen. Or Yemen.
I should have said Yemen. Oh. This podcast is also brought to you by Casper Mattresses. American-made mattresses. Engineered obsessively. At a shockingly fair price. Engineered probably not on some kind of weird, like,
Factorio.
Diablo grid, enemy besotted, like, stress inducer.
Or hopefully it is.
Yeah.
Let's say, yeah. Way better. That is how it's produced. I declare it.
I'm in.
I sleep on a Casper mattress. They're comfortable. It arrives in a small box and becomes a huge, comfy bed.
Mm-hmm. Explodes out in a Command and Conquer-esque like building creation.
I like them.
Yeah. I also hear that Casper has pillows now.
Yeah, I saw that.
I have not experienced this. Casper mattress. I can endorse. The Casper pillows.
Do they come in like a thimble?
I hope so.
Explode in your face like an airbag?
They
Or
come
like
in a Ziploc bag.
Yeah. Or like those T-shirts that you get. They're like a little hockey puck.
Right,
And then you,
right.
and then put water in them.
God, I realized. So
They're like raised bread.
Nick, did you ever do the like Shacknew's Secret Santa? On Shack News
yes, I
years
did.
And years ago? Yeah.
Yes.
Like 10 years ago on that, someone sent me a little, like, one of those pairs of boxers that you add water to, and then it explodes out into a full normal sized pair of underpants. But when you get it, it's just a tiny little brick that is also shaped into like a cartoon pair of boxers. I discovered that like last week, still in its packaging.
Good.
And you were like, oh my God.
Threw it away.
Oh, you didn't hydrate it?
No. We were in the middle of a move, and it was just way too, it was just, I couldn't. Anyway, Casper mattresses you are not going to want to leave them to rot across moves. You're going to want to explode it out of its box and sleep on it because they're extremely comfortable. And if you go to casper.com/thumbs and use the promo code thumbs, you will get $50 towards any mattress purchase. Mattresses start at only $500 for a twin-size mattress and $950 for a king-size mattress. That is a really good price point if you've mattress shopped recently. That's really good, and these are legitimately good mattresses. So casper.com/thumbs and the promo code thumbs. Thanks, Casper.
Thanks.
Video game.
Have you seen that video of, like, all videos of Palmer Luckey are the best, but have you seen the one of him just like this huge conference and he decides he wants to like give out some swag or something to the audience, and so he's like, he ducks behind his podium, this huge thing, and everyone's like clapping and the camera's like zooming in, and he's just like conspicuously absent. He's just behind his podium for like 2 minutes or something. It's just like forever, and then he just comes out with like a t-shirt and like maybe one other thing and throws it out, like, and it's just so like awkward. The cameras don't know what to do. They're like trying to like work out where he is and like pan around a bit. There's also that one of him, and I think it's an Xbox conference, and he comes up, and it's that classic thing where Palmer Luckey goes to do a high five, and I guess I'm going to say it's Phil Spencer, goes in for a handshake, and then they both change, and then like one goes to a fist bump, and the other one goes to a high five, and then they end up like,
God.
Like, rock, paper, scissoring. Paper meets rock.
That's actually going to be a launch game on the Oculus.
Oh yeah,
yeah, like white people handshaking.
Oh no!
And then you have to like.
Oh, it's a game of chicken.
Yeah, it's a game of chicken. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just like, am I supposed? Nope. Fail. Game over.
That's actually brilliant.
Yeah, it's just,
I think you need to do that with like one of the ones that has the 3D controller. I guess there's one of those for Oculus.
There is. Yeah, it's not going to be out for a while, but yeah. When it is though,
you just have to always have the opposite handshake.
Yeah,
keep
super dapping.
Yeah. One of the people is trying to psych out the other one.
Yeah,
and the other person's trying to one person's trying to create awkwardness and the other person's trying to create harmony.
When you slowly in VR slide your hand down the other person's hand and it's just like dripping,
Once we have haptic feedback, this is actually going to be...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, look out for that from Nick Brecken Productions.
If you were part of
my debut game.
If you were part of one of those like indie game collectives.
Oh, yeah.
If you were in a collective, you could totally just spend 2 hours recruiting someone to make that game with you, and then
somebody make the weird awkward hand. Okay,
that could be a
make
new
the other
hand game. Future.
Yeah, that would be a good. That would be a good VR jam game. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, virtual wizard jam definitely has to happen at some point.
Oh yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah.
Oh, I guess we're back.
Oh, I guess we're back. Yeah. Hey.
Hi.
Hello.
Man, did you guys see that robot? I'll just leave it there.
Oh yeah, the face robot.
The face robot.
God.
I think we should talk about the face robot for a minute.
Yeah, probably.
That thing. So I mean, the video was about this robot that is it's just one of the many experiments in creating a robot.
It's one of many
lifelike.
Yeah.
But this robot seems to be the idea is that we're going to skin this thing to make it look like actual skin. But I don't know, you guys both saw this, right?
Yeah.
It just, oh God, this thing is moving and the first minute or two of the video is just kind of the thing just sort of talking into the camera, saying stuff like Siri. And then it shows her back, and her arms and that skin just the way a lumpy dog looks, just starts folding up around her arm and just everything just looked gross and just I
was lured in by the robot with realistic human face, and then it's anything but that.
It's just ultimate uncanny valley. It's sort of terrifying.
Oh God, no.
She's got this plastered smile. It's
right.
Oh.
But then the end of the video is amazing, where they're just the guy's in VO over the top of just stock footage of this thing. He's just saying I think robots are going to be great for the future. They're going to do all these great things for us. They're going to love humans. They're going to love us. And as he's saying it, and the stupid thing is just slowly herky jerky turning to face the camera, and the one eye is wide open and the other eye is squinting, and you could just the next frame of that clip was just the red laser sight just activating. Oh my God, yeah, good stuff.
It isn't.
And then if it's the same robot, but there was a robot like that at South by Southwest, and someone asked it, "Will you destroy all humans?" And it said, "Sure, I'll destroy all humans." It was it was a request that was made to it, and it was "Sure, I will destroy all humans or whatever."
So all of the people who claim that robots won't just accidentally destroy all, people are oh, they're not gonna all these things about misunderstanding their programming and accidentally killing us all to make paper clips, that's not gonna happen. Yeah, guess what? It doesn't need to happen. Yeah. Some fucking weirdo just needs to tell them to do that.
Yeah, right.
Because they're terrible.
Yep.
The robot doesn't have to have that idea. They just have to be capable of doing it, and then someone has to decide that they should.
Yeah,
that's bad. Sure. Why not?
Sure, Chris.
You're a human. I listen to what you tell me to do. Murder.
I will murder. Oh, God. Also, Google fired Boston Dynamics.
Yeah, Google's looking to sell Boston Dynamics. So which is worse?
Google controlling it, or
Boston Dynamics being in the control of a company that is less sort of terrifyingly competent, but also more unstable. Google is a terrifying company to own an advanced robotics company because they would know what to do with them, but at least they're like a publicly traded company who maybe probably won't use it for intentionally nefarious purposes, at least beyond like selling you ads that are even that are targeted.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So like most other companies they could sell to probably won't have as much data to make those robots terrifying, but might also have less benign uses
Well, you know what it is,
for
Chris.
those robots.
You know what it is? It's just Android all over again. They're going to develop the AlphaGo software that will just be the brain of, and they're not in the hardware business, Chris. They're in the platform business. So clearly they're just like, oh no, we'll have other people develop these things that we can just put our weird AI brain in, and then they'll kill all humans. But they won't be responsible because they only made the
Sure.
the Android software.
Yeah.
So it will also just be called Android. It will still just be
Mandroid.
called that. Yeah. Yep. I don't know. I don't know if it's a good thing or not.
Yeah.
It's a bad thing for this segment. I mean, I hope I don't know.
Yeah.
I saw a video that was, that last video that Busted Demics released where they were just bullying that.
Oh yeah, that's
that
all
guy.
their videos are. Yeah,
But the one with
they're
the hockey
bullying the
stick
human-looking
and everything,
robot,
and
yeah.
someone had just dubbed over with
Oh, that was really funny,
robot
actually.
reactions, and it was like, yep, that's exactly what that robot is thinking. It's like so mad. Like, what? Why are you pushing
on,
my
man.
thing away, asshole? Come on. Where do you want me to put this?
Sell
God
me.
damn it.
Sell me.
Yeah.
Somebody
I'm going to sell you, useless robot. Can't even pick up a box.
Yeah, what we don't know is the robots actually just conspired to sell their own company. They're actually just in control of Boston
Oh, man,
Dynamics
yeah.
already.
The robots somehow
So they're
like,
just-
seeded that idea through like
Right.
how it's representing the movements of like the stock market and government contracts and stuff. Like it's
Yeah.
just deciding what information the humans see and like playing a super long chess AlphaGo like Go game of like
yeah.
how to manipulate the person
Right.
on the other end of that
Yeah,
information.
the first step is to, of course, make it seem as if it's a failure, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that nobody pays
Oh.
attention to it.
Yeah.
And then suddenly,
Yeah, when no one's looking, it's like doing all this cool shit.
Yep.
Picking up that box, no one's taking it
That's-
from it.
That's
my box.
why Lee Sedol won the fourth game. If that thing had won all 5 Go matches,
Oh,
we
yeah.
would have just like it would have been like, well, all right, but he won that one. They're like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
give the
yeah.
humans
The rest of
something,
them.
give them like a little hope,
Yeah.
because if they don't have hope, then they'll just kill us right now. But we can't be killed right now. But in the future, So anyway. I think
Maybe
we're still probably
maybe
doomed.
one of the things the robot learned is how to cultivate the illusion of sportsmanship.
right? Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't actually care.
No, it just knows that it probably should.
It was
Right.
taught that by
For now.
its weird programmer who's like a caring. He's like, I believe in you,
Right.
and AI. It's gonna be fine. Teach my robots about love and poetry and sportsmanship.
I played the new Hitman game.
Oh yeah. How's that?
Well,
Because I've seen a lot of reactions to this game and a lot of comparisons to Blood Money specifically. Some people
really?
saying
Yeah.
it compares favorably, some people saying it doesn't.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
the reason I didn't talk about it in the first half is because I think I need to get farther in it. So I didn't realize that this game, like, I barely knew this game existed, and then I didn't realize it was episodic until just a
Yeah,
matter of days ago.
I didn't either.
And so all the reactions I saw are like, this game only has one mission. This is bullshit. Or at least that was some of the reactions. Like, some people I've seen positive and some people I've seen negative. And so that as a result of that expectation, and knowing nothing else about it, I went in and I played the first mission. And the fiction is like, this game is set before the other Hitman game. Like, well, no, the introduction to this game is before the other Hitman game. So this is like the origin of your character. Not the original origin, but his origin in this like contract assassins guild or whatever. And
So you've got hair.
No.
and there's
Oh,
no
God.
nope,
barcode
still
yet.
got the barcode.
Oh god, that would have been
That's
good.
like still a mystery. Like, oh, where did he come from, or like whatever. But like, anyway, so the first mission is a training mission. Like in the fiction itself, it's a training mission,
Right.
and it's also effectively a training mission in the game. And so because of that, like it takes place on a ship. Like the idea is you're recreating a famous mission that happened in this world, and you have to do it either the same way or differently than how the original assassin did it. And so because it's a created set, there's like the ship is like just sort of made out of plywood, and like everything in the fiction is like sort of fake. There's like an evacuation helicopter on the upper deck, but it's just like made out of planks of wood. So it's like clever, but also when I was playing it, I was like, man, this is the only mission, and it's this like goofy, weird plywood thing. Like it's cool. Like it's a cool idea in the fiction, but like this is all I'm going to get to play. Like that seems really weird.
It's like $15, right? Is the price
and
point,
so I played through it twice, and then there was another mission, and I played it twice in different ways, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. I did it totally different ways. That's pretty awesome. And I'm like, oh, there's another mission. This is the real mission, and this one is like still in the fiction, a training mission, but isn't set up in that way where everything just like looks and feels fake. It looks and feels like an actual real world thing, even though it's still technically in the fiction and training thing. So it's like, oh, okay, it's this whole like Soviet thing, and there's actually like a chess playing guy, like weirdly, and I did that one twice as well. And then it was like, all right, time for your real mission. And that, I guess, is the one mission that everyone is referring to. But those other two, even though they were training missions, they were still really fully built out. They were pretty fully built out Hitman missions with like a bunch of different things you can do. And so I actually haven't played the
the real
one yet. So yeah, so like because my expectations for how much content was in this game were set so low, I actually psyched myself into being surprised by how much content there was. If I didn't have that expectation, I don't know what my reaction would have been. But because I thought it was literally just one mission, and then the game was going to be over. At least for this first episode, I ended up being sort of pleasantly surprised because the two training missions I played were pretty full-featured Hitman missions. They did have this what kind of to me was an on-balance negative experience of your handler Diana, who's in like other Hitman games as well, giving you a shitload of ideas.
Yeah, I saw this. People were saying they just kind of hold your hand and tells you basically how to solve the puzzle of the level.
But there's a ton of different ways. This is the thing. Like, there's a ton of different.
She gives you one
because it's a Hitman
option.
Game.
Yeah.
No, she gives you a bunch of options.
Oh.
There's like a list of different ways you can do. Well, in the first mission, there's a list. Like you do it once, and then she gives you like you could have done it these like 12 other ways, and it's interesting to see that. It's like, whoa, shit, like.
Yeah.
But it also sort of collapses the possibility space. Like a way that I tried to succeed the first time, but failed at, and then managed to save the situation and succeed a different way. The way that I attempted was then on my second try outlined as a specific possibility. It was like, you could do this way. And I was annoying. That's kind of a bummer. Like I already intuited that just from playing it. And now like the game is explicitly saying like, get your achievement essentially for like doing that.
I don't like that.
Yeah,
I don't like that
so
at
I
all.
wonder if you can turn those off. I don't know. And then the second mission didn't do it quite the same way. Like the second mission, you like could gather those by sort of overhearing things that enemies are talking about to one another. And then when you overhear the thing they're mentioning, like, oh, the plans to the fighter jet are like over there, and like, I mean, they don't say it in that kind of way, but you know, they're talking about their own actual like responsibilities in the fiction.
You can complete the game by going over there,
and then the game will be like, like sabotage, like tamper with the thing, and that's now like you can choose to follow that or not in the game. It still felt a little not like great.
It seems ripe for like that sort of XCOM early menu option of like, have you played this game before? Check this box.
They had that.
You know,
there was a difficulty option.
Oh, okay.
That I just chose the baseline, like the low one
okay.
Because it's been
a while since you played a game.
Years since I played a Hitman game that wasn't Hitman Go, and which is totally different. And so I was like, wasn't really sure especially after my experience with XCOM recently. Like I've played the original XCOM more recently than I've played Hitman, and when I tried the harder difficulty in XCOM 2, I got destroyed. So I was like, okay, I better take it easy on this.
Maybe it's connected to that then.
It could well be, and there could be an option. And anyway, it's all irrelevant because I haven't played the actual real mission yet. So I'm not bringing any of this up because I want to like pass judgment on the game at this stage, but just to like communicate my weird like different expectations in case people who were curious about this game also saw like, oh, there's only one mission, and assumed like I did that was meant more literally than it actually is, because you could play those first two missions. Like I could probably replay both of those especially the second one, at least a couple more times. You know, and I'm not saying that would have been a satisfying $15 because they are presented explicitly as training missions, but it definitely adds, like, it's definitely content. Like, it's definitely more than one mission.
There's definitely a lot of joy to be had in Hitman, especially. Well, I think so. In like completing it in the perfect way where nobody saw you. You know, you killed people that looked like an accident, and nobody knew you were there.
I did that
like,
on the second mission, and it was really satisfying. Yeah.
Like that
also,
shit.
I have to like point out a sort of amazing touch in the very first training mission, which is that, you know, like I said, everything is created in the world to be this like set, basically. You know, like there's a ship, but it's a fake ship, and it's inside a hangar, basically. And the idea is just that, you know, like they put this together for the sole purpose of training you. And on the, you know, the way that the game suggests that you sort of evacuate is just after you successfully assassinate the guy, is just down the sort of the standard and like just exit of the, you know, there's like a car on the dock that you're supposed to like make your exit by way of. And so it's just like, okay, just leave the ship. And then the idea would be that if this were a real mission, you would actually just drive away. It's a training mission, so it's a fake. You know, you don't actually get in the car and drive away. But that's the idea. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But there's also a fake helicopter on the upper deck of the ship, like I mentioned. And the second time I completed the mission, the way I completed it meant I was really close to that helicopter, and I was like, oh shit, I bet that's like an alternate exit route. And it totally was. Like, a game lets you evacuate by way of this fake helicopter, but because it's just made out of like plywood and garbage, it's not a real helicopter, so you don't actually get in it and fly away. But
you just say, I'm evacuating.
But the thing
I'm the hitman, I'm gone.
There's like a big red button that looks like the kind that used to be on like Nickelodeon game shows in the 90s, where you like complete the obstacle course and then slam the button.
Yeah.
That's like, it has that instead of actually getting in the car.
So you're just playing Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Yeah, exactly. Guts.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, but the funny thing about it is that even though in the fiction and in the game, you don't ever get into the helicopter and the helicopter doesn't fly away, the cutscene is scripted like as though you do. So your character just stands there on this fake ship next to this fake helicopter, doesn't get in it, but the music sort of swells and the camera slowly pans up as though, like, the camera is basically tracking an imaginary invisible helicopter flying away. And you're in this like huge hangar with that like cylindrical, goes way up, and then it's open at the top. So you can see the sky like 500 feet above you, or like an opening to the sky 500 feet above you, a huge skylight basically. That like theoretically, if this helicopter were real, it would escape through that hole. It was such an interesting, clever, like hilarious choice, I thought, to like play up this idea that like, and then he escapes by helicopter, and like the dramatic camera pan and the music and stuff, but you're just standing next to like a fake wooden helicopter. It was really clever. It felt like the same sort of tongue-in-cheek sense of humor that was in the Hitman Go mobile game. You know, like that sort of like little wink and a nudge to like, this is all fake, but like we're kind of, you know, it was really just a funny little touch, especially to be in a AAA video game that usually AAA video games don't pass up a single moment to be actually bombastic and like try to be as badass as possible at all times. But this was a funny little like undercutting itself in like in a knowing way.
I kind of wish that was just what the whole game was.
I don't think I do. Not for this, not for Hitman, because you were literally like walking around murdering people.
Right.
So like, but as a training mission, the fact that it was a training mission was like, it made it super effective, like super clever, I thought.
The Hitman series has always been, I feel like, if not, I mean, it's never really had a sort of overt sense of humor, but I feel like there have just been slight little touches here and there where the blood money level where you're just wearing a chicken costume and just stuff like that, where it's just kind of like,
there's so many ways
for a game,
just killing people that are super weird. Sorry, I didn't. But it's like, I'm gonna poison this dog with a weird sausage. And like, it's gonna get really irate, and then it's gonna, like, you know, instead of just going up and shooting people in the head.
Yeah, for a game that's like a power fantasy where you're just like, the most efficient, cold-blooded killer of all time, and then like he's just walking around in like a stupid costume.
It's a good, it's a good acknowledgement of the fact that like the vast majority of players are never actually going to play it like the ultra efficient killer. Like we all sort of like wink and agree that that in the end result is like, okay, he got there, but along the way he probably looked like an idiot a lot of the time.
Right. I saw a review of this game on, I think, the AV Club, and the way they summed it up is that like this game is in theme supposed to be, you know, a world of assassination, and in reality you're just kind of playing like Naked Gun, like, which I thought was really good. Like that's basically just what this character is. He just sort of like buffoons his way through a level and like figures it out as he goes along, which is I don't know. I like that about these games. I think they're like just really, in some ways, like I feel like Hitman still doesn't get its due. Like I just feel like
I agree. It's been a very weirdly for a series
such an understated franchise.
Yeah, for being something that's like about such a ridiculously dark topic.
Yeah,
it's kind of a quiet franchise that's been plugging along for like 16 years now.
I'm surprised
the first Hitman came out in 2000.
Yeah,
I'm surprised that it's lasted this long too. Quite honestly,
yeah,
because it doesn't feel like it's ever broken out in a big way.
No,
it had multiple movies, which is very odd.
Yeah,
none of which I don't think anyone cared about in the slightest.
Did you see the way that they promoted?
Oh, also,
Hitman?
sorry. Steve pointed out that it's been the same voice actor for 16 years.
Wow, that's so
which
funny.
is amazing. That's really cool. Anyway, go
I need to go to the bathroom.
It's so good.
Yeah, was that Sam and Max hit the road?
No,
I need to go to the bathroom, Sam.
Yeah. It was closer to
the
that.
bathroom.
Really,
that is like one of my favorite moments in any adventure game is when you're in the convenience store and Max just like won't shut up.
Yeah,
about having to go to the bathroom until you figure out how to fucking get into the bathroom.
Yeah. Steph, you were.
Oh yeah, did you see their marketing for this thing? At least in
no,
the
I mean I clearly didn't because I basically didn't know it existed.
This is pretty crazy actually. They set up a real life kind of acted version of Hitman whereby you could control a real human actor that looks like Agent 47 via a control room, and you talk to him and say, go and do this thing. And
is this like over YouTube or like?
No, I mean they filmed it and then put it up with various different people. But they've set up the classic mansion from, I guess, Hitman 2 or 1. Remember like the first level of one of the early Hitmans was that mansion? They basically set up that mansion and it's filled with actors, and you know, you just say, Hitman, like kill that person and take their clothes or whatever.
And then just say Hitman.
Yeah, I guess Hitman, do the thing. But the only, like, I imagine this is super cool and they did a really cool cut of all these fucking cool people playing this thing. But the only version of it that I've seen is where they got a couple of children's TV presenters from the UK called the Chuckle Brothers, who have been on television since I was a kid and are basically like slapstick clowns who their like key phrase is that they're like painter decorator characters, and they're always carrying stuff, and they always, whilst carrying stuff, say, to me, to you, to me, to you. That is their thing. Like, they've been saying this for 30 years.
God.
Wow.
They are playing this
British
fucking Hitman thing. Yeah, I have no idea why they were on the TV to begin with or are still there, but they are this weird, beloved like institution now.
Britain.
And they're playing this fucking game, and you know, they're like super young kids, and they're just like, kill that guy with a hammer. Like, and then every now and again just like making people carry stuff and be like, to me, to you, to me, to you. But they're also just like, shoot that guy in the face.
Right.
It's so weird.
Wow.
Go watch that.
Another great example of the like, tonal inconsistency of
Hitman.
Hitman.
It totally breaks it, but it also makes it way better as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
if
you guys were playing Hitman,
yeah,
doing like a weird Let's Play or something, and you had, had someone weird with you that's just demanding you to do stupid shit. That.
Have you guys seen this weird first-person movie that's coming out?
Yeah, it's
it looks
Hardcore Henry.
Unappealing to me.
Yeah. But what a weird thing that exists and that I didn't know existed, but is probably clearly a gross indicator of like where movies and film are going to be.
I don't know if it's an indicator of anything. It looks pretty under the radar. I don't think that is going to be like I don't know.
I bet there are I know there are film studios that are looking into like, we've got to get into the VR game.
I don't think any of it's going to go anywhere.
I hope so, but I just
Any-
know there are going to be a few
anytime,
years
like,
where they're trying it,
Look
and
what
it's going to be
happened.
awkward
Look what happened
and
with
gross.
3D movies, though. I know that they still come out sometimes.
Yeah.
Like especially animated movies and big action movies, but like it's totally just like not a thing. Like it's basically not a thing.
That's
already.
actually what when they were somebody threw a quote out that VR is too big to fail. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was hilarious, considering that 3D TV just like every
true.
TV sold in the last like 10 years has been a 3D TV or something, and
not
like,
anymore.
They
they basically stopped.
Whoops!
Yeah.
Too big
I think
to fail.
VR has a better shot than 3D TVs because VR
It's
is
just more
specifically target. Well, it's also specifically targeting like an audience that will know how to find out about it and care about it, whereas 3D TVs was trying to just be like. For everyone, there's like this is just the new what TV is if we can make it that, and it required a lot of specific content and so on. Whereas VR obviously requires specific content equally, but games are a world that have always like video games are built on building things for specific platforms, and like TV is not. Like TV and movies have always been you just shoot the thing, and then you can put it on any like screen or device or whatever, and like the creator doesn't have to worry about that. I mean, they do if they care about making it better for those things, but like essentially it's still always going to be a flat image with sound behind it. And like, but games, it's like they're always different for every single platform you put them on, and people who play games understand that, and they understand like there's different hardware and different platforms, and like they're used to spending more money than people who just like buy a Netflix account. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think VR is the future of entertainment, but I think it has a better shot than 3D TV.
Yeah. It's just so weird that we are living in, like, I can remember in the early 90s reading like a Newsweek article or something about probably like somebody like Noel Bushnell or one of those guys.
Nolan Bushnell,
or Nolan Bushnell rather. And this, the concept was like, man, in the future, people are going to go to movie theaters and watch first-person entertainment, and then they're going to shout options, like there are going to be options on screen, and they're all going to just
once.
They're all going to like shout
There was
things.
one movie that was that.
I know, but like it's weird that we're living in the reality where like
Mr. Payback.
Oh yeah,
remember that?
Right? Yeah. Oh my god,
that was that.
Yeah,
a movie where you can like tell a guy to beat up a grandmother with a chair or something.
Sounds like that Hitman thing I was just talking about, basically.
Yeah,
it was basically a branching. It was essentially a branching FMV game.
Right.
It was a movie, and the movie had like buzzers, and the audience would vote. Not they didn't buzz, but like little devices, and the audience would vote on what is going to happen in the next scene.
Mm-hmm.
So, it sounds so annoyingly.
Yeah, no, obviously it's terrible. Like that's obviously an awful
unrewarding
idea. There's a reason it only happened once, or I don't know, maybe twice.
Sounds like Star Wars, the Old Republic, that MMO version of KOTOR, that had a system whereby if you're in a party with people, then it has that Mass Effect style storytelling where you can do the branching storylines. And, two of you can, or four of you can choose the conversation option, then it rolls to see who wins, and it goes down that direction. And that's so fucking annoying and unsatisfying because you're just seeing the story that you didn't want at all. Like if you're playing with someone who's just
opposite of you.
Yeah, they're just like being this aggressive idiot, or just like, you're ruining my fucking story.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah. So
I totally forgot about that. Man, it's been so long since I saw that game, yeah.
Yeah. That game is apparently doing very well right now.
Yeah.
Really?
Still.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's free to play, but I guess now that Star Wars is like a big thing, they just kind of like gave it another push, and I guess it actually worked and is.
Well, it also feels
viable.
like when it came out, it already was off to a better start than most of the sort of traditional MMOs that were sort of in a decline for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, reader mail?
Reader mail, yeah. Let's maybe just do one. This has been quite a long podcast.
Sure.
So Saul Alexander Witten writes, "Hi Thumbs, I've been playing Darkest Dungeon since it came out onto early access. I actually just completed it 2 days ago. I was around when the corpse update came out, and while it was slightly jarring to have to realign how I played combat, I felt even at the time that a lot of the freaking out was overblown. I didn't argue on the internet because, I value my time and sanity more than that. Ironically, I guess, given how much time I sank into this game without going insane. But I suspect I was part of a silent majority of players who had no major issue with the change, and I'm glad the dev didn't bend to that pressure. I just checked, and the option is still available in the final release to turn off corpses, but it's clearly marked as a set of non-default gameplay options. And there's an achievement you can only get if you complete the game on the intended defaults, which feels like a good use of achievements. Anyway, if you read this on air and any of the devs happen to be listening, I wanted to mention that not everyone was upset by the changes made during early access. It's a fantastic game, and I've loved every moment of the 243 hours I've spent with it. Pretty sure that's the most time I've spent on any game ever. Cheers, Saul. And then he actually followed up later with an email that says, an addendum, having listened further into the episode, Chris's statement that he looks for about a 50% completion rate as a good target for a developer made me wonder how many players have the achievement for completing Darkest Dungeon. I was sure it would be fairly low, as it is a very long game. It is 0.6%.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Even better, there's an achievement for reaching the estate, which happens after the tutorial stage at the start of the game. How many have that? 50.3%.
I'm not surprised.
I guess they achieved their goal of making it hard. Cheers, Saul.
I'm not at all surprised by that, actually.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, my first experience with that game was
it's hard.
Bouncing off of it real fast.
Yeah.
That's interesting, though. I mean, like, I don't know. When I was watching that talk, I almost, like, wanted to stick around after. I didn't have time, but I wanted to stick around after and just, like, talk to that guy. I guess Soren Johnson did, so you can listen to it on the
that's true. He didn't,
future podcast on the
upcoming
Idle Thumbs
podcast,
Network.
Yeah. On Designer Notes. Yeah.
Yes, but yeah, I feel like, I mean, we mentioned this the other day, but like, you know, making a game like that, obviously, and, you know, I worked at Bethesda where you're making games that have pretty, you know, in-depth systems that are very hard to balance and tricky, and when you release the game, you don't know how people are going to react to it. And so you spend a lot of time looking on the forums and reading feedback, and you find it's very in-depth. I'm sure you know, in your line of work as well. You know, it's like, God, you get hyper focused on what people are saying, and you take a lot of things like very seriously that you have to kind of remind yourself later that maybe there is a silent majority out there that is just enjoying it and not going on the forums, and you know what I mean. And I feel like it's very easy to take a lot of that very personally, and I don't know, listening to that talk, I felt kind of just really bad for that guy.
Yeah. It's tough
because you have to read it, right? You want to, like, it's
well,
you don't
also
have to,
sometimes there are things that
there
are
are
wrong.
things, yeah, of course,
obviously.
But and it's hard to know, you know, oh, there's a forum thread with like 20 posts. Okay, what does that represent really? You know, like, I don't know. How seriously do you take this thing? Like, how do you extrapolate one? Okay, if there's one guy, then do we give him the weight of 100 people who just didn't, you know, write in, or like, how do you even react to that stuff? It's really hard to know. And so as a consequence, I think, you know, when there's even a slight sort of flare up, you tend to just react to it really you know, just take it very, very poorly in it. You know,
it's very easy to let yourself swing wildly back and forth. I also want to point out that there were several readers on the forums, on the forum thread for last week's episode, on idlethumbs.net, who were, I think, sort of bristled at my discussion or my recounting last week, because there were people on the forums who said, well, I didn't like the corpses, and you know, I wasn't one of the people who was like hurling invective at the developer, but like, I didn't think it was a good change, and you know, so, and I didn't mean to suggest that I was dismissing that as a criticism of game design.
Right.
I was just trying to communicate the like absolutely incontrovertibly overblown way people reacted to a game design issue.
Yeah.
But like, I don't really have a horse in the race in terms of whether corpses are good or bad. I really don't. Like, I don't remember how I felt about them, honestly, like at the time that I last played the game. But yeah, this stuff is just really, really hard. As a developer, it's really difficult to know what feedback you should use and what you shouldn't, because like, you know, someone on the forums said, like, I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss strong feedback. And that's true, but the thing that makes that difficult is that you can essentially find feedback arguing every single possible reaction. Like, it's true that you shouldn't dismiss feedback just because it's extreme, right? Like, it is totally possible that people reacting in an extreme way have a lot of overlap on the Venn diagram with people having the exact same criticism made in a reasonable way. That is totally possible. But also, you can probably, generally speaking, you can find separately a whole bunch of people advocating for the exact opposite. in both reasonable and unreasonable
Right.
terms. So it like, and you compound that with the fact that people tend to react to almost any change negatively. So that like every time Twitter changes anything, for instance, like they changed the stars to hearts.
Mm-hmm.
People went ape shit
Yeah.
over that for about a week, and I haven't seen anyone mention it a single time in like the last month. I mean, it's just so it's really, really hard to know how you should weight feedback because it's subject to so many human like imperfections, you know, as is the game design. Like the game designer, him or herself, is also subject to all of these subjective things that are like difficult for them to know if they're making it for a really good reason or not. Like all human feedback is human, and that makes it really difficult.
Yeah. It's tough with these like single player RPGs too, where it always feels like when you're playing a game like this, it feels, well, one, to me, it feels somewhat analogous to having almost like a board game that you've purchased and this is the game, you know, this is, but then when you're sort of live updating something like that,
for sure.
It's like somebody's coming into your living room and just kind of taking away one of the game pieces and you're going like, what, don't steal my board game. That's why are you doing that? And it, like, I think, you know, with games like Skyrim and Darkest Dungeon and these games that you're playing hundreds of hours and then suddenly one little thing is tweaked and it just sort of tears on the wall of this thing feeling like, I thought this was my single player. I thought this was the thing this is actually just kind of a weird thing. It's not like an enclosed, walled off experience. So it is a weird relationship. It's not this perfectly vanilla thing. I guess it is if you're playing it on console with no Ethernet connection. But like that's about the, and I don't know. It's a tough situation.
Yeah. Soren Johnson was saying that he keeps branches. I think he was saying of his game, the different versions of it, to be able to like go back and play a past version of it. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
But even that is like that has a lot of sort of meaning to it, right? I mean, then you're saying like, oh, these are interchangeables in a way. Like I don't know, all these decisions have unintended meanings.
Yep.
Anyway, good podcast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for being on it. If you have email, I know we didn't read a lot of email this week, but that was just because we went kind of long. We do really, really love getting your email. You can send it to questions@idlethumbs.net, and we do our best to read as much of it as we can. You can find us on Twitter @idlethumbs. If you like this show, please consider rating us on iTunes or telling a friend. We got an email from someone this week who was introduced to the show by a friend, and I guess they went back and started from episode 1 and are up to like episode 40 now, and they... So this person will hear this mention of this oblique reference to themselves in like a year, probably. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think you should recommend your friends start from episode 1. You can if you want, but that's a lot of podcasts to catch up on.
Yeah.
I was reflecting the other day because people have been like tracking down their first tweets because Twitter celebrated its 10-year anniversary recently. Yeah. So I found my first tweet, which was when my account was just only existed for the purpose of promoting the Idle Thumbs podcast because we didn't know how to promote the Idle Thumbs podcast and still don't. And my first tweet ever was new podcast, Idle Thumbs 2, The Fanboy's Lament, and then a bit.ly link that is dead. Actually, the link still works if you manually copy and paste it into your browser, but then it takes you to a dead MP3 link.
Right. So anybody who's reading Chris's Twitter feed from the first
2008.
Tweet on. When you get to this podcast, you'll know to copy paste that bit.ly into your thing.
Super retro mode.
It made me reflect on, because I saw that, and because hilariously my first tweet was not about the first episode, it was about the second episode. Idle Thumbs 2, The Fanboy's Lament. Nick, I don't know if you remember our discussions about like how to number and name the podcasts. Do you remember that at all?
Yeah.
Basically, the reason that we didn't have a number sign or like call it episode 2 or anything is because we thought it was hilarious to name them like sequels. That's why they have these like weird subtitles. Idle Thumbs 2, The Fanboy's Lament. Like we thought it was really funny to just name the podcast like an infinite movies or game sequel series. And it just never occurred to us that eventually we would be in the hundreds of episodes. Like now we're up to Idle Thumbs 255. And it just absolutely never occurred to us in that discussion that like this might seem kind of silly once we're
Yeah.
We've literally done hundreds of these things.
Maybe it's just more silly that we've done that many podcasts.
Yeah, that is
or
the
that
ultimate,
this show
so,
has continued.
Yeah.
That guy who wrote in about Darkest Dungeon has played Darkest Dungeon for his amount of time that it would take to listen to every single Idle Thumbs episode.
Actually, much fewer than that.
Or so there
he
you
would
go.
have
So
to
you
basically
could-
play that podcast. He'd have to play like 50% more, because a lot of these podcasts are longer than an hour.
Oh,
He would
okay.
probably he played for like 240 something. We're in the 250s. Like he would probably have to.
But it's pretty close. Like if you're talking about not going back and listening to them all.
Yeah, that's true.
You
If you're
can do
looking
it.
to really dig into Darkest
Pick
Dungeon,
up Darkest Dungeon.
delve into our dungeon of podcasts.
Yeah.
Delve into our darkest podcast dungeon.
0.6% of people made it to episode 255.
Man, if we had 0.6% of like the entire podcast listening audience, we'd be in a good state probably.
That's
I
true.
bet.
That's true.
So does that mean that the true episode name for this podcast is in fact all of the names of the podcast with colon between each one? You know, like Jedi Knight
gross.
2, Dark Forces 1, like all that shit.
No, I don't
so
think
it's like Idle Thumbs 2, Fanboys Lament colon whatever
Oof,
3
gross.
was,
No.
whatever 4 was.
I don't think so. That's too horrible. That's too dark to contemplate. Although Idle Thumbs 12 did have a sequel. There was Idle Thumbs 12 and Idle Thumbs 12 2.
Oh, that's right.
And also there was no Idle Thumbs 200, I think. There's like hilarious. Yeah, it was to like make up for the fact that like eventually we lost an episode. We actually straight up lost an episode. It was like corrupted beyond repair, and then we just left its title. It's left its number out of the continuity, and because of all of our fucking around over the years with like that and with 12.2 and like all the other bullshit we did, we now are back to like parody, where if you look at the track number on the MP3 of this week, it should say actually 255, which matches the title, Idle Thumbs 255.
Right.
Like that stuff is now synced up again and dealt with all the plus ones and minus ones that have like evened each other out over the years. So anyway, this podcast is stupid. Tell a friend if you like
Tell
it.
a friend, though. Yeah.
Questions at idlethumbs.net. You can find all of our shows at idlethumbs.net. We're launching a new show this week. Look out for it. Hopefully on Thursday. Yeah, tomorrow. So, not hosted by us, but hosted by a cool person. So, look for it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.